Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first ever Avid Live Sound webinar. It's a really exciting moment for us, and we appreciate everybody. I think we have a big list of attendees here, friends and peers from the industry. A really warm welcome from us. The band has got its 1-minute curtain call, so they're waiting backstage to come online. I just wanted to check a couple of good practices with you. This is a live webinar. There will be no open chat. There will be no open mics. There will be no videos for the attendees. But we have a Q&A section, and we really want you to use that. So please type your questions in the Q&A section, and we will do our best to get all of them combined and ask the panelists to answer them before the end of this webinar. So without further ado, I think they're finishing up the last makeup touches on Rob, our host, and I'm going to hand over to him live now. Rob, you're good to go.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody out there in the world. We've got attendees from all around the world. Welcome. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. This is life in lockdown. Absolutely no chance we'd have these four guys available at the same time in any other situation. So welcome. We got Adam Taylor from Muse in England. How are you, Adam?
I'm good, thank you.
And you've been ill yourself, haven't you? So good to see you back up on your feet, man. So that's great to see you.
I spent a few days in hospital with the virus, yeah, just getting back to normal, really.
Yeah, good. Chris, who's our host, is actually currently suffering from it. So you know, pretty good cross section of us are living this whole thing out. So what we can do as an industry, we can keep talking to each other. We can keep hopefully learning and moving forward, and hopefully this is going to be part of that. Austin, how are you?
Hi Rob, how are you? I'm doing well here in Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's early in the morning for you, man.
Yeah, 8 a.m. It's a good excuse to get up early during the lockdown.
Yeah, but you're looking well, actually. You're very healthy. Austin and I have spent quite a lot of time at the wrong end of the multi-core to each other for quite some time. So good to see you, man. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Hi, Paddi, over in Germany. How are you? And what town are you in, man?
Hey, Rob. I'm doing great. The weather is awesome, and I don't think I've ever spent an April at home, so I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah. What have you been learning? Have you learned some new stuff?
Not really. I've been lazy.
Okay. I'm trying to learn all this kind of video stuff. It's really
today I will, I guess.
Yeah. And last but not least, Charlie Chopper Bradley. How are you, man?
Hi, how are you? We're good. Sunny Yorkshire today.
God's country, as they say.
Yes, God's country.
Best tea. Right. So stay on, Charlie. I'm going to start this. So look, it's the elephant in the room. We're in lockdown. Our industry's in all kinds of chaos. We don't really know what's happening. So how do we get through this? How do we get through this period where our industry is just kind of not functioning at the moment, and maybe moving forward, what's going to happen to our industry? We're going to have more streaming. Are we going to just be able to do smaller gigs? Will we all have to stand like 2 meters apart? What's your sense of it?
I don't know really. I think the big stuff, arenas and stadium stuff, I think it's going to take a long time before it comes back. They're talking about, not doing large events until there's a confirmed virus for everybody. And I guess even when there is a virus, there's going to be some period of time where you have to wait. And then, as you know, it takes time to ramp things back up. Yeah. So all of us now that have had tours cancelled, we were supposed to start tour rehearsals end of February. We should have been on the road now in Europe.
So that's with Harry Styles, right?
With Harry Styles, yeah. And we were supposed to be out until the 20th of December.
Yeah, that would be very infectious, all that screaming.
yeah, absolutely. And our shows are GA on the floor as well. So we were doing shows in Duran with GA on the floor. So, yeah. I mean, unless they're going to move to all-seated shows and you have to leave 1 or 2 seats in between each people, I don't know. I mean,
okay. Austin, what about you? I know that you were like still touring right up until the end with Thom Yorke, weren't you?
Yeah, I was actually out with Pat Metheny at the time,
Okay.
but we had just finished Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and we were in South America getting ready to run our South America run in Argentina when all the countries shut down the concerts. And then I was coming back. I had back-to-back tours. I was supposed to come back to the US and start the Thom Yorke tour. We were going to go to Coachella, and all that got canceled. I was supposed to be out with Thom Yorke right now. But we're just listening to the news, finding out what happens next. Thom Yorke rescheduled the Coachella tour until the fall, but at the moment it looks like the news is a little unsure as to whether concerts of that size are going to happen in the fall. I mean, the mayor in Los Angeles said that nothing was going to happen there until 2021. And as Charles was saying, it takes some time to ramp back up. So I'm just working with several of my clients right now, talking about rescheduling all the shows. All of the agents right now are scrambling to reschedule everything that they had. Some of them have been rescheduled twice, into the fall and then further into 2021. So just playing the waiting game.
Yeah. So Paddi,
trying to learn much.
Yeah, man. So Paddi, Germany, you seem to be coming out of the lockdown quicker than most. Anything on the horizon? You got any work coming up?
Not really. All my tours got canceled or postponed, or we don't know what to do right now.
Yeah.
The government said there's like no mass gatherings until I think it's August 31st or something. But honestly, I don't see any like bigger shows happening this year anymore. Let's see. I think the next tour that is definitely going to happen will be in February, March.
Yeah.
Until then, I have no idea.
Okay. Let's see what happens. Adam, you work for Muse, technologically always on the cutting edge of what's happening, visually, video stuff, big machines, everything. So those guys, that's the kind of band I imagine was going to kind of, do a quick dodge, reinvent themselves, virtual concerts. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well, there's been no talk of anything really. We're on a break right now. We finished in October in South America.
Yeah.
There's no talk of doing anything certainly for this year. So it's going to be into next year anyway. So who knows where we'll be at that stage,
So there's been a few virtual concerts, right, on the internet. So Chris Martin did something. There was a kind of fundraiser. And you guys got any thought of that? Are we gonna pivot in that direction? Do you think? I guess monitor engineers is cool. If a band are playing someplace, there's a monitor engineer sat next to them. So you guys are going to be in work, I suppose. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't think that that anything really replaces the feeling of being in a giant room with thousands of people seeing your favorite rock band. There's nothing quite like that. Watching it online is a beautiful thing, but there's nothing quite like the experience of being there with all your friends listening to your favorite music.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Honestly, I don't watch much concerts online. It's like there's something missing. It's like food without salt or something. Part of going to a gig, I don't know about what you guys are, but part of going to a gig for me is the kind of the communality of it. Being together in a space and moving to the same.
Absolutely.
Songs. Okay, so listen. We could talk about this for a whole webinar, but that's not what this is about. What I really want to do with you guys was to kind of pick your brains. Let's get, talk about the way that you work and hopefully that will be interesting. I'm a front of house guy, so, I'm hoping I'm going to learn some stuff as well during today. But first, I'd really like to ask you this, and this is a kind of cliche question, but every time I do a kind of a meeting or a little masterclass or something, this is always one of the first questions that people ask me. So I'm going to ask it of you guys. How did you get into this industry? Where did you come from? Paddi, I'm going to start with you. I'm guessing with all the guitars in the background, you were a guitarist like me, who didn't practice enough, right?
True. I started playing guitar when I was, 11 years old, I think, maybe 12. And my band, or actually my uncle was in a band, and a couple like schoolmates and I, we formed a band as well. We shared the same rehearsal spot. And my uncle, he works at the Hamburg Opera House. and he got me an internship for like half a year. So I had to go through all those different departments like lighting and stage, carpeting and audio. And even though I didn't really like the music, I mean, opera is not really my thing at all. I like the technical side of things. And I became friends with a couple dudes working at this opera house, and they actually introduced me to a rental company called Profimusik. It's called P and Blue nowadays. And I was an apprentice for 2.5 years at that rental company, and that's how it started.
Cool. Adam, I think you came a slightly different road to that, right?
I studied horticulture from school, and ended up doing a studio engineering course, just a part-time thing in Manchester, which led to getting a bit of live work, really, with the concert systems out of Manchester, basically, at the time, and it just went from there, really.
Nice.
Just putting the time in, you know.
Yeah, so something about looking after delicate flowers from the side of the stage.
Yeah.
That's it. And Charlie, I don't think you're a musician either, are you?
No, I'm not. I went to TV production school straight from college, and then ended up working in a nightclub that had live bands on 4 or 5 nights a week. It kind of ended up being sort of stage manager, and then they needed a little bit of audio doing on the side of the stage. So I used to mix for local bands. And then they used to have a few like the old sort of 60s and 70s bands doing the club circuit used to come through. And just met a bunch of people from that. A couple of years later, got offered a little gig for a couple of weeks. So I thought, why not? Handed my notice in, and that was it. Off I went.
Cool. Any regrets? Any of you wish you'd done something else?
No, I mean, this is all I've done for 25 years.
Austin, you did it. You're the, I guess, the youngest in this room. And you did the kind of the more modern way. You went to audio school, right?
I first went to music school. So I played a lot of music when I was younger, and then kind of made my own makeshift recording studio in my house when I was younger, and kind of started learning how to use all the gear on my own. And then I went to music school up in Boston. And there is where I noticed that I just kind of had a knack for dealing with the technical side of things. People couldn't figure it out, and I had already had experience doing it. So then from there, I started working in recording studios in New York. And then while in New York, I started working locally, doing live sound, and I just kind of liked doing live sound a little more. It was exciting. Every day is a new band, you know, and you get the great feeling of having completed a whole show at the end of the day, and you get to walk away and, you know, give everyone a high five. And then I did a master's program at NYU, the music technology program. Actually wrote my thesis on monitor wedge placement, and then, you know, got into
Sounds like
touring.
A fascinating read.
Probably not for most.
Very cool. So listen, okay, so all of you guys work with absolutely top of the range artists. I don't need to read out your CVs. So I'd like to talk about that, working with the artist. Paddi, let's start with you. So how do you manage the expectation of what is possible for a monitor mix? Because an artist maybe spent 6 months in the studio, listening to every little thing. How do you manage that?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it's a mix of paying attention, talking to the artist, having some sort of talent, maybe knowing how to capture tones and to translate it into in-ears or wedges, and I don't know, to be honest.
Do you start with just a mix for I only have to do one mix, right? So it's easy for me. You guys do 12, 20, 30 mixes. So do you start with like a kind of left-right mix and then just kind of adjust it for each person, or do you start from scratch for each person?
Whenever, when we do production rehearsals and I do have enough time to have like one basic mix and then just add levels on top for the individual instruments and the artists, that's what I prefer, because it's more definition in the mix. If I'm in a festival situation or doing some local stuff or maybe just a throw and go, it depends on the situation and the console I'm dealing with. I'm not always on an S6L, especially if I'm on a festival and we don't carry any production.
Sure.
But yeah, usually that's what I do. It's like, you know, best case scenario is I have some recording and then I just sit down, dial mix it in, and just offer it to the artists. And usually, you know, I hit the nail on the head.
Good. Obviously, otherwise, you know, you wouldn't be doing the great arts that you're doing.
Thank you.
Austin.
Hey guys, a very quick interjection from me here. Q&A is going crazy. Really good stuff in there. One common technical thing, and I guess you know, a bunch of engineers in the room, or audio engineers in the room. Rob, can you possibly raise the level that you're sending us, or maybe increase the gain a little bit? There's quite a bit of people who think that your voice is
My voice is quiet.
lowish.
Okay.
Yeah, on the lowish.
I can do that. I've been known to turn things up a little bit. How's that?
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. So Austin, communication during the show, how does that work? You know, is it eye contact? Have you got hand signals? You know,
that is I'd say that is job number one as a monitor engineer, is to keep your head up. Just always watch the stage, watch your artists, no matter what. And even if you have a main artist to focus on, you have to keep kind of observing what's going on. I've worked with several bands where we have a whole horn section or a string section, so sight lines can be very difficult, but I will have a pelican next to me that I can stand up on and make sure that I can be seen as much as I need to see them, so that they can see me and make some signals. Each artist has a very kind of specific way as to what they do. With Thom Yorke on stage, he has some kind of finer detailed kind of dance moves that he does, where the audience really can't tell what he's doing, but I can tell that that movement meant he wants less guitar. But for some younger bands, or bands that aren't quite as used to playing live, for example, I did this great thing with The Lonely Island, and they hadn't done a lot of live shows, so I kind of had to coach them, A, as to how to use any of your monitors, what to expect, and B, like what they need to give to me so that I can make their experience as comfortable as possible. Because job number one is to make sure that they are comfortable on stage, so that they don't have to think about anything. They just have to make their arts do their thing. So just making them comfortable is job one.
Hey, so Adam, it's a little bit different for you, right? Because you're under the stage, so no eye contact.
Well, they always make sure that we've got some kind of viewing window, shall we say?
Yeah.
It's basically a letterbox. So I mean, I can pretty much see all the band, but the band can't see me. You know. And like Austin was saying, it's, you know, it's the eye contact thing. Sometimes when they look over, they can't see you. They feel a bit lost. They feel a bit like there's no one there, you know.
Yeah.
I always get what they need, and I'd agree with what Austin said there. You know, the sight line, making sure that you're watching the stage, and the same with Thom as with Matt. You know, I can just tell kind of what he needs, you know, from how he's acting, or what he's doing with his guitar, or, you know, generally tell what he needs.
So you've got a big complicated show, right? There's dancers. I saw this show, an amazing show. Dancers and all kinds of stuff going on, right? Yeah. I'm sure there's like choreographers and show callers and, you know, how do you deal with that? I guess they just think that you're just kind of big telephone center, right? And you can just talk to anybody.
Well, that's how it ends up, you know. I mean, fortunately, you know, the day's pretty organized. Everybody's got their slot. That's the key thing, really, to minimizing any problems on that front. But as the day progresses and everybody gets plugged in and everybody starts arriving and there's people turning up, can I test this? This broke last night. Can I just have a listen to this? You know, you've got dancers turning up, wanting to rehearse, you know, and you're trying to program, maybe doing some playback, trying to fix some stuff, you know. So it can get a bit pressured at times. You just got to manage it the best way you can, you know.
Yeah. So Charlie, you got any secret tips for dealing with artists? You deal with some pretty big pop stars in your time, egos. How do you deal with all of that?
I mean, pretty much what everyone else has said. You know, great peripheral vision's your friend when you're a monitor guy. You know, everybody wants to believe that you're paying 110% on them, no matter how many people you've got on stage. So it's a matter of learning. You know, if you're working with the big artists that have been performing for years, they've all got their little tells and little traits. You know, some guys will just tap the side of the microphone with their finger, you know, if they want a little bit more vocal. Some guys will turn around and point. But I think once you've worked with your artist and you know what's going on, I think one of you know, I always try and anticipate, you know, what everybody needs. So, you know, if I'm having a good day and I'm on top of things, I've preempted all the moves before you've even turned around and pointed at me. I've already realized that, you know, you needed a little bit more guitar or whatever.
That's what I was going to say. I've watched some of you guys work, and you're just mixing, right? You know, you're not waiting for somebody to tell you to turn something up or down. You mix in, and you because you worked with the artist and you understand what they need. You're just kind of working, you know, you're just mixing and making sure it sounds great, and assuming that that's what they want, right? Yeah,
absolutely. If you can preempt most of the requests, then you know, the artist can just be on stage and they're concentrating on what they're playing, and if they're comfortable, they're going to play a better show, and it's a better experience for everybody.
Sure. So listen, that's kind of the end of that section. Chris, is there any questions from the floor that we need to take?
No, I think everybody's fine at this point. Your mic is much better, so I think we're good to go.
Crash onwards.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the next section where I wanted to talk about, and this is a big favorite of mine, and I know it's probably the most important thing for all of you guys. Gain structure, right? So where we're going to start with this. So Adam, just talk me through your gain structure, man. You know, mic, you know, gain on the mics, how you have your faders, is it pre-post? How do you go out through your auxes into the IEMs? Just give me a little bit insight into that.
Well, I take the analog. I still heavily think about the analog setup, really. So I'm optimum gain throughout the system. So it's coming in faders at 0. I'm sending out, you know, optimum about 0 on the aux sends. And the only thing I find myself doing is pulling down the master outputs, the aux outputs. Really, I'm pulling those back just to compensate for anything that's getting a bit too hot, you know.
Yeah.
And then sending out still pretty hot to the IEM transmitters, you know, getting good level into them. So it's pretty constant throughout the system, really.
Sure. Yeah. So Paddi, what about managing the IEMs? You know, what about managing all that radio stuff? Do you do that yourself? You got somebody that works on the tours with you that does that?
That depends. On In Flames, I only have like 6 in-ear systems that I actively need, 2 in spare. So I just coordinate all that stuff. With Toto, on the other hand, and Alter Bridge, I have a system tech taking care of that. Because I need to focus on the band, you know, especially with Toto, I have 8 people on stage and like 80 inputs. I need to focus on mixing the band. And I can't be distracted with all the, I don't know, 30 plus wireless channels. It's just, you know, I need a different guy to do that.
Of course. So, so Austin, I know that this is a really important thing. IEM choice. You know, I've turned up production rehearsals, and all the musicians have had like different brands, and you know, I'm guessing that's a nightmare for the monitor engineer. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's definitely very important to know exactly what your musician is hearing. So if you have a band that's on a bunch of different types of IEMs, it's important to, as a monitor engineer, have all of those different types of IEMs, or work towards getting the whole band on a single manufacturer or single type. With Radiohead, we were all on Sensophonics, and I got a pair of Sensophonics so that I knew exactly what my musicians were hearing, so that I could make correct audio decisions based off of what they were hearing. I've also worked with bands where they were on wedges. With Hall & Oates, the whole band was on wedges, and we worked diligently to kind of reduce the stage volume to increase the overall audio experience for the audience and the band members on stage. So we worked with Jerry Harvey in Orlando. They're a great company. They make great products, and they helped us kind of comfortably get some of the band members into ears who hadn't used ears before, which it can be a kind of interesting experience because ears can be very isolating. So getting musicians who are used to wedges into ears has to be kind of a delicate process, but it's definitely important to know what your musicians are hearing and what products they're using.
Sure, like on Radiohead, I remember it was a mixture of wedges and IEMs, and that's almost in a way the kind of the worst of both worlds, right? When you You know, somebody's got 1 ear in, somebody's got 2 ears in, somebody's got no ears in and a wedge. And then
That's true. In Radiohead, though, they use the wedges mostly for low frequency. So Thom and everyone that has ears, we use the wedges so that they can feel the low frequency waves kind of coupling with the stage, and they know what's happening. Johnny Greenwood isn't on ears, he's just on wedges. But it is generally frowned upon to use 1 ear and then use wedges, because then you end up matching the volume of the wedge with your in-ear monitor, and that in-ear monitor is right next to your eardrum, which can be very dangerous and possibly more detrimental to your hearing than anything else.
Sure. So Charlie, I was thinking Harry Styles, man, that must be a lot of radio channels.
Yeah, this upcoming tour we were about to do, we've got multiple stages. Everything's in the round. I think by the time you have in-ear transmitters, radio mics, backups, guitar packs, I think we were knocking on 60 or 70 channels. So yeah, we have a full-time RF tech just to look after that and coordinate that on the whole show.
Where do you stand on the whole wedges versus IEMs thing?
I'm solidly an IEM guy these days. Since Bush was the last time I had wedges on stage back in
George Bush.
But I totally agree with Austin there. You know, 1 ear in, 1 ear out. You're on a slippery slope. Your entire body always wants to be in balance. So you know, if you hurt your, you know, if you're right-handed and you hurt your right arm using the other arm for something, all of a sudden, you know, oh, I've got a pain in my left arm. It's the same with your ears. Your whole body wants to be in balance. And when you've got 1 wedge and all, you know, a load of, whether it's a wedge or whether it's just 1 ear in, 1 ear out, all that volume that's coming into the ear that hasn't got the in-ear in means you can't hear the one that you've got. So the packs end up, you know, you can end up with 50% more gain on a pack.
Right. Yeah. And that's dangerous for people's hearing.
And that's dangerous. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I mean, there's a big difference for me when, you know, one of the first, well, the first major band I worked with was a band called Manic Street Preachers, who were insanely loud on stage, huge sidefulls. This guy, legendary mono engineer called Joe Campbell, I used to work with. It was just insanely loud. And over the years, as you guys have kind of stopped all that loud nonsense on the stage and put everybody in IEMs, it's made us front of house guys' job a whole bunch easier. So I do appreciate you guys encouraging your artists to get on the IEMs. I'll tell you what I wanted to talk about next. Desk layouts. So Paddi, I was watching a video that you made the other day for, I think it was called Mother Class, is that right? And you did another one on Event Elevator, and you did some really interesting talking about how you lay your desk out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, if I can find that bit. Where's share my screen gone? There it is. And I've got a little camera over the top of my desk. Hopefully you can all see that now. So Paddi, how do you lay out your desk? Do you have all inputs and you use your screen? What do you have on these middle faders?
I always, like on the massive section, I always have my VCAs. Because I fade in ambient mics in and out, depending if there's like a sing-along part or in between songs. I tend to use, or, you know, keep them muted during a song just to keep the mixes clean. Yeah. And
do you use this thing where you do that VCA contribution so that if you use the VCA when you're on Sends on Faders?
I do.
We're on Sends on Faders, so now when you use the VCA, it will change whatever faders are controlling that, right?
Yeah.
And are you always Sends on Faders?
Yeah, usually I am. I have a thing called like a control mix or like a guest mix with all the levels and all the microphones all the time, just to make sure that everything's working fine. And I'm at Sends on Fader all the time just to make sure, you know, if, you know, one guy turns around, he's like, hey man, I need more guitar. There's not like 5 buttons that I have to press. It's just one, like selecting his mix and boom, go. Sure.
Hey, Austin, here's a question for you. Do you ever change the level on something that you're not listening to? I.e., do you always have, you know, whatever you're soloing, that's what's on your Sends on Faders? Or do you sometimes, you know, when you're doing Thom Yorke, do you listen to him and just do Sends on Faders with other people?
if I am changing something, I want to make sure that I am listening to whoever I'm changing that for. So with Thom and on Radiohead, the interesting thing on Radiohead, which is not my doing, it's Mike Prouda, the gentleman that I stepped in for. He, amazing monitor engineer. He also works for Nine Inch Nails. He set up his show file so that each band member has a contribution aux that then is returned to a channel on the console. So Ed, Johnny, Thom, everyone has their own aux that has all of their instruments in it. So then when Thom asks for more guitar and just points at Ed, all I have to do is bring up a little bit more Ed for Thom, and that takes care of all of the instruments that Ed plays. But in general, I will not make any changes to any one mix if I'm not listening to it. And I don't really mix. I mix on with VCAs only if like several band members look like, oh, the snare all of a sudden just got way too loud, so I can pull the snare and that'll do it for everybody. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess so. Are your auxes pre or post then?
They're post. But as Paddi was saying, everything is about speed. Like you want to keep your head up and you want to be able to do things fast so that if anyone asks you for anything, you want your hand to be able to move to a place on the console. You know what you're doing and you can do it fast rather than having to flip through a bunch of menus to try to figure out where that input is. And next thing you know, the moment has changed. It's a different song and you're already behind. You got other people asking you for different stuff. So it's speed, speed, speed.
Sure. And Charlie, what about you? How do you lay your desk out?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I'm a Senzon faders guy. My center section, I have a mixture of aux outs, and usually reserve the last couple of faders for VCAs. So what I like to do is most of the channels post fade, but maybe the vocal for my lead guy. Or maybe, you know, if he plays a guitar at some point or an acoustic guitar or whatever, then I make those send them to a VCA, and then they're always on the surface. So if you know, again, like we were just saying, it's all about speed. My finger's already hovering on the VCA. So if he needs more vocal, it's in, we're done before you even know what you're doing. I also use the flex channels a couple of times on my Duran show.
What do you have up here? These are the flex channels, by the way.
The flex channels up at the top.
Hey
on
guys.
The Duran show, I use one of those as the audience mic and one of those as the lead vocal send. So I only fly the ambient mics in when there's some audience interaction, or then at the end of each song, then I'll bring the audience back in case there's any chat, or you can hear the cheering and all that kind of stuff.
Hey guys, very quick technical interruption here. Rob, I think your screen is frozen, so maybe we can fix that. Good questions in the Q&A. Favorite one so far, where's catering?
Somebody jump on that one.
I ask that every day.
Yeah, I'm normally like the last one in the morning going, that's the first question, right? Where's catering? Not because I've been staying up all night drinking, honest.
But there's also some other good questions. So yeah, keep them coming, I would say. Rob's restarting his screen share. Should be.
You guys use ambient mics on stage, any of the other tours? Like, I know there's audience mics that you guys are saying you bring in between, which is something that I do as well. But does everyone use ambient mics to kind of open up people's ears mixes, or?
On the Duran show, I have a little bit tickled into everyone's mix. And then I do the master VCA thing for either audience interactions during a song or, like I say, at the end of the show. On the Harry Styles tour, to be honest, the Screaming Girl level is so beyond that it's impossible to have any kind of ambience. In fact, we go out of our way to minimize, the audience coming back down any stage mics. It's insane.
Right.
So how about this then? Here's a question. I don't know who this is for. Just jump in. Venue size, how does that affect working on a stage? You know, you're working in one of those horrible old arenas where there's a 6-second reverb, you know, at 60 hertz. Now with the IEMs, does that make your life easier? Paddy, jump in on that one.
I think the venue size matters a lot. Last year on the Toto festival run, we were in a situation where we're doing like tents and arenas, sometimes stadiums and open air shows. And even though the guys use in-ears, it affects the sound a lot. So I have to adapt. And you know, also a big factor is the PA system. Like all the newer PA systems, or like the GSL from D&B or the E15 from Adamson, they're cardioid. A lot of PA systems are not, you know, and especially the Toto guys, they don't like the low end. And, you know, if we have like PA systems, or especially the sub array, if that's bleeding too much, I'm in a terrible situation.
Right. We had the opposite of that, Austin, right, on Radiohead, where
Thom loves hearing the subs up on stage.
We had to redo the sub so that there was just a little area on the stage where Thom stood, where that rattled, just because that's what he wanted.
In fact, in South America, there was one show where we had the GSL array, and Thom thought the entire PA was off for the entire sound check, and asked you why you had the PA off, when really it was because the PA was cardioid and you couldn't hear on stage. And he's so used to kind of getting some of that feeling. And that very much matters for venue size.
You remember, I was a little bit scared. He was a little bit cross with me, but like, when we did the sound check with the PA off, and I was like, it's on, honest.
It's definitely on. That was also outdoors, so there was no slapback, which is another big issue if you're in kind of a big arena or something. If there's a pretty bad slapback off of a wall or something, a lot of times if people aren't in ears, it can be very detrimental to people's timing, which is another great reason for people to start using in-ear monitors, not only because it protects your hearing, but also it helps you achieve a better consistency from show to show, depending on what venue you're in.
Cool. Adam, here's one, a big one, I think. Equalization and dynamics for mixing monitors. You know, how do you start about that? You know, I guess, actually, before we go there, let me ask this one. This is a kind of maybe a more interesting question. Favorite microphones, Adam, we're going to start with you. Vocal mics. Where do you stand on vocal mics?
The vocal mics, we use the Sennheiser sticks, Sennheiser system with the Neumann capsules.
Right.
There's two different capsules we use for the main vocals with different pickups on. So the tighter pickup is used when he's out, because he performs a lot in front of the PA.
Yeah.
We use a tighter pickup. I can't remember the model numbers. It's a long time.
But that must be tricky, right? The Neumann capsule all the way in front of the PA.
Well, not for me, it isn't. Not for me, it isn't. I mean, it does pick up. You know, the mic technique is not the best at times. So it does pick up a lot of ambience, and obviously when they're performing in front of the PA, there's a problem with timing. You know, so you've got to get things up in the mix that are going to help them. You know, keep inside.
I did a show a couple of years ago, which was in Wembley Stadium in London. It was a big kind of pop show for a radio station in London. And there's a big thrust stage, like went 30, 40 meters out in front of the stage. Yeah. And there was a very, very famous pop star on the end of this thrust shouting at the monitor engineer, "Why have you got this weird echo on my voice?" in the sound check. Took a little bit of kind of just a small physics lesson to kind of work that one out.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with that. One thing you can't do is turn the PA down, you know. So you've always got that problem. Riding vocal mics is the best thing to do, because that's what's picking up all the spill, you know.
Right.
And with, you know, I'm automating that at times with time code and stuff like that, riding it manually with VCAs. And in regard to other mics, I mean, I don't really have any. Sorry?
What's your drum kit mics of choice? A couple of drum kit mics that you might
there's a lot of Shure mics on there. We use an M88 in combination with a 91 for the kick drum. Standard 57 for the snare. There's a Neumann on the snare bottom. A 105 on the snare bottom. Shure 98s on the toms. We use individual cymbal mics rather than just, you know, overheads. So
Yeah.
every cymbal's mic'd up. So everything has its own mic, basically.
Sure.
Works really well. Keeps it a lot tighter, you know.
Yeah, and those big open air shows, I saw that the sound was so amazing in front of house. MC did such a great job.
Yeah.
Hey, Paddy, what's your favorite vocal mic?
I think it's the SE Electronics V7, because all the guys that I put on that microphone, they love it. And actually, you know, I did Alter Bridge a couple times, and I had to leave them to do In Flames again, blah blah blah. And when I rejoined them in the beginning of this touring cycle right now, Miles Kennedy, he's always been on a Beta 58, which is a great microphone. It works, but he's not, you know, he was not really happy because we do like not the big stages that Slash usually does. So Miles sings in both bands, Alter Bridge and Slash does the bigger shows. So after 200 plus shows, he came back to Alter Bridge, and the backline is louder because Slash uses ISO caps and no side fills, no wedges. And, you know, we had Mark Tremonti on wedges, and he was just like, man, my vocal sound is weird. It's like, what do you mean? It sounds great in my ears. It's just, you know, the noise that we have on stage. Yeah. And we were trying different things, and, you know, we had that one show where I just gave him the V7 vocal mic. It's like, dude, you got to try this because I'm not desperate, but, you know, running out of ideas. It's like, try that vocal mic. And he did. And he's been on it ever since. And same thing with In Flames. We had a KSM-9, a KSM-8, and they're all great microphones. They sound great. They do the job. But whenever I put somebody on a V7, that was just next level, I think.
And the brand for V7 is what? Sorry, I missed that the first time.
SE Electronics.
Okay, I don't know that one. Cool.
Oh, you should check it out.
I will.
I think what Paddi said was interesting because a lot of what monitor engineering has to do with is a lot of times your artist will come to you and be like, hey, something weird is happening. I can't understand what's going on, but something weird sounds in my ears. So a lot of what our job is to kind of try to figure out what's happening on stage and what their experience is like. So a lot of times something that someone is hearing will be not like, for example, the bass cab is making a bunch of noise, but it's being picked up by the piano microphone, the vocal mic that's over there. So a lot of it is kind of detective work because you don't know exactly what the experience is, but you're trying your best to put yourself in their shoes on stage. Right. So like Paddi was saying, someone will come on and be like, hey, this sounds weird. And you kind of work with them and you're like, okay, well, what sounds weird about it? Where in the frequency range is the weirdness that we're talking about? So a lot of it is like sleuthing work. Yeah.
Because some of the clues are a bit strange, Charlie. I bet you've had a few over the years. I've heard people say to me, I was a bit too blue or something like that. You know, that's a good trick, isn't it? Kind of deciphering what the artist is asking for, because they don't always know exactly what it is they want. They know something's not right, but they want to kind of change something, but they can't completely spell it out for you. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be quite difficult because you know, some people don't either have the technical knowledge to explain what they think they're experiencing, or, you know, I just use a description in a different word, like you were saying. It's like, I need it a bit more fluffy. I want some more blue. Yeah. But like Austin was saying, you know, it is a lot of detective work. If it's in a rehearsal or production rehearsal sort of scenario, often if you go for a walk with the artist and like go and stand next to them, it can be as simple as, you know, moving 2 feet left, or the sub-array being, you know, resonating in the stage or under the drum riser, or all those kinds of things, whether it's being picked. It could be a physical thing like resonation, or it can be, you know, another mic, or, you know, I've had multiple instances where the drummer doesn't want gates on their drums, or they want them quite loose, and something on stage, the bass guitar is resonating and it's triggering the floor tom, and the floor tom's opening up, and you're hearing the low resonation from the ride cymbal down the floor tom mic that's triggered by the bass guitar. I mean, it can be crazy, a crazy chain of events.
Yeah, that's very cool. Like audio detectives, right? Stage left.
Yeah, I mean, with Radiohead, we have signal coming to the monitor desk, and then we're sending matrices back out to the band because they're doing a lot of live looping with chaos pads and all the loopers. I remember one time we were in a rehearsal, thank God it was a rehearsal, but every time I switched to a scene, automatically I was getting feedback and I couldn't see which channel it was coming on, and I just kept flipping back and forth between the scene, and it ended up being that one of the loopers had set all the way open it's like live channel. So the looper on stage was set to the wrong thing, but we were searching through the show file to see that all the matrices were set correctly. So a lot of times, you know, with 100+ channels, if something's going wrong, it takes a lot of detective work to figure out exactly what it is. And usually it's not what you think it was.
Yeah. Actually, that's great, because that brings me to the next kind of thing I wanted to ask about. Adam, snapshots. You use snapshots. I'm guessing you use time code on Muse.
Yeah, I try and keep the snapshots to a minimum, really, just so you can keep a good eye on what's going on. Generally, one per song, and then I'm doing a lot of. I like to do a lot of stuff manually, so one per song usually does me. I have a couple of songs there where I'm getting into 3 or 4. And within those snapshots, time code features quite heavily, yeah, on some songs. Processing on and off, gates on and off, direct outs. We use quite a lot of direct outs to feed effects, vocals and such like. So the time code switching them on and off.
Just explain to the people at home what that's all about. So I'm sharing my screen here. You can see next to each song on this show that you can see there's a little piece of time code. 13. The one that's highlighted teardrop is 13:00:01:00. So that's hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, and that's been generated somewhere on the stage, generally from the playback engineer, and then so it means that we can trigger our snapshots, right, to code. So we don't have to remember. We can focus on the mix. And the snapshot will change at exactly the same moment. It's not something we had on Radiohead, but it's something that I use on Massive Attack.
Sorry, am I getting into events there? We're talking about snapshots, are we? Or?
Yeah, go for it.
The events, another example would be meter levels, controlling channel mutes. So, for example, the FX vocal, as soon as it switches in via MIDI, and as soon as that thing kicks in, there's a decent amount of level, just background gain noise on the channel, right, which will mute the clean channel. And when the unit switches off, the meter drops and the mutes flip. You know, I'm using that function. Like the direct outs I've already mentioned. And I was trying to remember what I'd actually done, having not been on the desk for 6 or 7 months, you know. And that's as far as I got, really.
Yeah. What about you, Charlie? Are you a big snapshots guy? I know, like Duran's got an incredible back catalogue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of with Adam. I do use snapshots. I try and stick to one snapshot per song. Like you were saying, that the Duran show file, we were 80+ snapshots. You know, if you imagine every time you do a tour, you're adding probably 20-25+ songs from the new album. Then they want to play some songs from the back catalogue that they didn't put on the last tour. Yeah, you can rack 80 up, no problem.
Fantastic. And of course, from whole different eras, right? So I'm very good friends with the front house guy, Snake, as you know, and he talks about, you know, modeling the sound to match the original album, different, you know, distorted snare drums, the kind of 80s gated reverb and all that. Do you try to reproduce that on stage? I mean, that's a general question for all of you. Are you guys trying to reproduce the album, or are you just trying to make it easy for the musicians to work?
I know, like we were saying, that there's a lot of that goes on front of house for Duran. Yeah. On stage, not so much. The guys just want to have, you know, what they're comfortable with hearing, and it's just a general little bit of reverb. We change the reverb times. We may change the reverb model song to song, but on stage, we're not trying to create the big 80s sound. We're just giving everybody what they need to sing and play in time.
Cool. Okay. So, okay, we're kind of running out of time. It's amazingly interesting, and the time has just flown by. I just wanted to talk about one other little thing here. If I can make this work, and I can't. Never mind. Plugins. Let's have a look at plugins. I asked each one of you guys to bring up one plugin that you were interested in. And this is the first one, which is the AE600 by DSP. I'm going to ask each one of you to talk to one. I think this was your choice, Charlie, right?
Yeah, I use this. I have this.
On, you use this.
I have this on Harry's vocal, actually. It's a dynamic EQ. So you've got sort of multiple things going on there. You've got all the different bands, so you can control obviously the EQ, the Q of the EQ, gain, cut, and balance, and then you can select a particular frequency and then dynamic threshold. So if a singer you can do it either way. So you can expand or compress. So you can expand below and compress above. If a singer hits his upper range and all of a sudden the vocal frequency has got a little bit too much bite in it, you can set the threshold just to cut that particular frequency, but only at that level. So it's very useful.
Cool. So and the next one up, I believe, is. It's this one. It's Paddi, and Paddi's lo-fi. What do you use of lo-fi on, Paddi?
Kick and snare mainly, because I'm like a drum sound like fetishist. I like huge drum sounds, and if you put this one on the snare, and you have to be careful because you don't want to have a distorted sound. But if you use it for this like subtle saturation, it makes your snare drum sound huge and fat, and I love it.
So you kind of lower in the bit depth, are you, to get a kind of grainier sound? Is that the idea?
Say again, sorry.
I said, are you lowering the bit depth to get a grainier sound? Is that the kind of thing?
No, I just use basically the distortion and the saturation knobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think the next one up, this was you. This was you, Adam, Channel G.
Yeah, well, this came about, we got to working with submixing drums mainly, and the request put in for the SSL plugins from Waves, and we couldn't stretch to that. So this kind of got introduced because of that, and it does a great job on the buzzes. The presets are pretty good off the bat,
Yeah.
Calling the presets in there.
That's probably where I normally start as well, is kind of choose a preset and have a little look at that afterwards.
Yeah, and it's everything in one box, isn't it? There's not, you've just got one thing to look at, and it does a good job of that.
Nice.
And it suits a lot of applications, very flexible.
So, and then the last one, this is you, Austin. This is a reverb. Tell us Sonox Reverb. Tell us what you do with this bad boy.
Yeah, we use the Sonox Oxford Reverb for some of the reverb in the boys' ears on Radiohead. It's just a very clean, natural sounding reverb.
Do you use this one? This is my favorite one on this reverb, where you can mix between the early reflections and the tail.
Oh, absolutely. I like bringing in the early reflections just enough so you hear like kind of too much of them. I actually do this with a lot of settings where you bring it up to you hear too much of it, and then you tuck it back so that it sounds natural. For me, I just want a reverb to sound like a natural environment. I don't want to have to hack at it with an EQ to make it sound not tinny. So I'm just looking for something that just sounds like you're, in space. And that's something I do with people's ears a lot, is I'll give each person their own ear reverb so that you can create kind of a space inside of their head. Because a lot of times in-ear monitors can be very closed off and kind of isolating. So if you create this kind of bed of very low, almost inaudible reverb, it kind of gives this kind of reverberant space in their head a place to live.
Nice. Nice. So listen, guys, I had a whole bunch more stuff to ask you, but we're super running out of time. Chris, any questions from the attendees?
Too much to answer, really. And thanks, guys, for posting this. By the way, one question keeps reoccurring as well. Yes, there will be a replay of all of this. So as soon as we can post this on social media, you can all go and watch any explanations that people have done, and you can watch them over and over again. There's some categories. Do we want to go into a quick Q&A now before we wrap up?
We've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask a couple of kind of populist questions and assume that somebody in that Q&A list is going to will have asked it.
Let's go for it.
So the first one, and this is in the Q&A list, is each guy's quickly best ever gig. Start with Paddi.
I don't know. Probably Toto. Like in general.
Was a specific show, a festival or something, and you went, this is it, I've arrived, this is me, I'm so happy?
Not a specific show, not a specific tour, but the phone call I got to do this, because that felt like, wow, this is next level. And, you know, this band has been around for like 40 plus years. I'm 32 years old. So that was like, I think.
Big boys. Yeah, nice. Austin, what was your favorite ever gig?
Well, you know, Radiohead obviously kind of takes the ticket, although I worked a lot for Hall & Oates and I love all their music, but there's something amazing about being a monitor engineer and being able to be up on a stage and look out at, you know, 40 to 60,000 people sing along to songs that I grew up with.
Yeah.
So doing 4 days at Madison Square Garden, not having to load out for our day off in between was definitely a career highlight.
That was definitely one of the ones for me. Actually, that probably, talking about Radiohead, it was my biggest moment of all was the first time I ever was mixing Radiohead and they did Creep and they hardly ever do it. And I kind of probably shouldn't admit this is such a public forum, but I had a little manly tear in my eye when that happened. So, yeah, sometimes you just moved. All of the stuff that works around being a roadie can be hard, but sometimes there's just those moments, right, where the band and the crowd and the sound and it all comes together and it's just the most beautiful thing. Charlie, what's your favorite ever gig?
I mean, I've mixed Duran for 12 years, so I guess my favorite client is probably Duran. I guess memorable shows, there's been tons of them. We did, the guys do a lot of corporate events and parties, so we've played some shows in some really crazy places, you know, 2,000-year-old castles in Italy and stuff. But I would say probably we did a show for the Olympics at Hyde Park, and that was pretty special.
Nice. Adam, you last.
Well, I was going to say Lima, Peru, 2019, because that was the last one before we finished up. And that would be a bit negative, wouldn't it? Probably the Glastonbury performances, really.
Yeah.
There's been something special in all of them, really. The first one was the first one. The second one, Edge joined the boys on stage. The third one, it was Brian from AC/DC. So they were all pretty special moments, yeah.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, there's something about the first time you do a headline show at Glastonbury, you're going to live with that forever. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to wrap up and I'm going to ask one more question. Same story. I'm going to ask you all the same question, and it's a kind of cheesy one, but there's 400 and something people out there watching this webinar, and thank to all of you for listening and paying attention and being great. But I'm sure some of you who are watching are young people aspiring to be monitor engineers, or you're monitor engineers beginning on your career. We got 4 of the top ones in the world here, and I'd be remiss not to ask this question. You know, what's the qualities that make a good engineer? And if you have any advice for young people who want to be monitor engineers on the kind of shows that you guys are doing, what would that be? I'm going to start with Paddi.
I think the most important thing is pay attention to the artist. The sound in the ears or in the wedges is not that important. Just pay attention. Look at the guys. You know, this is like more than 50% of the job. Just being there.
Cool. Austin?
I think one of the most important things for me in my career is reminding myself that I need to check my ego at the door when I show up on stage. Because as a monitor engineer, it's not about me being up there. It's about me making a comfortable environment for my artists. And also to realize that the artists that you're working for are normal people too, and there's a way to relate to them despite them being, you know, famous pop stars. They are human beings and they're just like you and me.
Beautiful. Charlie?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Interaction with the artist. You know, don't just sit behind your desk. And certainly if there's an issue, you need to face that issue straight away, and you know, get in there and talk to the artist, find out what the issue is. But as Paddy was saying, it's all about paying attention. Everybody needs to believe that you're paying attention to them 110%.
Yeah. Adam, final word on this.
I think a big thing. Perfect.
So listen, while he answers the phone, he's back.
Yeah, I think a big thing is confidence, having the confidence to get out there and stand behind the desk. And for me, a lot of that came from like doing a lot of teching, understanding what goes on stage, like patching, electric distribution, you know, backline, having knowledge of backline, you know, being able to talk about stuff with confidence, you know, and stand behind that desk, know what's going on in front of you, you know. That was a big one for me, I think.
Thanks.
Starting out.
So listen, guys, it's been absolute genius. And by the way, I just want a little observation from that last question. You'll notice quite often when we do these kind of things, people go, what's the secret plugin? What's the secret sauce that gets you to do monitors for Muse or Radiohead or Duran or Toto? And the interesting thing, that the answer, all of you guys gave an answer that was to do with your attitude, that was to do with your demeanor, it was to do with being pleasant and to be around. None of you gave the secret, is this plugin or is this little workflow? And I think that says a lot about the kind of people that you are and the success that you've had is to do with who you are as much as what you know, right? So on that note, I'd just like to say thank you, everybody, for taking part in this. It's been amazing. It's been recorded. You'll be able to watch it or send it to your friends. We're going to do a whole series of these. This was the first one, Monitor Engineers. I wanted to do this one first because I admire you guys so much. I do one mix, you do 12 or 20. You have to deal with the artist every single minute of the day and under huge stress, and I appreciate that. The next one we're going to do is front of house guys. And we've got some cool people lined up for that. We're going to have Sully, we're going to have Robert Scoville, somebody else who I've forgotten already, somebody quite famous, and Jim Warren, of course. And then but Chris is just going to close up with a few points, right, Chris? But
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say thank you for the questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to as many of them as we could have done. It was so busy. There were so many interesting things, and maybe we can try and answer some of them online and give some written answers. Thanks again for everybody for turning up. And some closing note, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, if you're still up for it, let's do a quick round of, or a rapid fire round of Q&A. I think most of them were addressed throughout the webinar, really. But a couple come always back. It's sort of related to IEMs and versus wedges. For example, a general tone that comes back is, do you guys process channels differently depending on whether they're going to IEMs or wedges? And then the second one that really comes back as well is the use of ambient mics and dealing with the closed off feeling that an artist seems to have on stage when he's on IEMs, right? And to continue to interact with the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. I think those are the two main ones. So if we can have a couple of last notes on those, I think a lot of questions will be answered and appreciated as well. So.
Okay, Charlie, you can jump in first. Different EQs, different dynamics, different way of mixing to wedges and the IEMs?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't really use wedges on any of my shows anymore. We do have subs dotted around the stage for feel, but I would definitely EQ and process very differently for speakers rather than in ears. I split the channels on the desk and just making it, you know, you can just double patch a channel, bring it back in, EQ it differently, stick a different plugin on it. And I think to answer the other question, ambience, it can be kind of a feel thing. You have to listen to what's going on in the mix and then decide how closed or open that is. You know, if you've got 10 or 12, you know, live vocal mics and you've got overheads and you've got all sorts of stuff going on, then you're already going to have some stage ambience in a mix. So putting room on top of that may not be necessary, or maybe, you know, just a minimal thing. You've got to be really careful. Putting too much room in my opinion, is worse than having not enough.
Got yeah, Paddy. I guess a question would be around this would be GEQs or parametrics. You know, is it different for wedges and IEMs, or do you use either or both? Or
I never use graphic EQs.
Okay.
I don't like them.
Okay.
And I'm okay with parametric, and I think it sounds better, and it's actually more precise, I think. Yeah.
Adam, any thoughts on that?
EQ for outputs.
Yeah.
Parametric.
Dynamics.
And dynamics. You've got to approach dynamics a little bit differently with monitors, because you've got to remember that your musician is playing against the compressor, is hearing them gates directly. So you just got to be a little bit careful with that. Ambient mics, I don't really put anything in there while they're actually performing. It's just reading in and out just for, you know, audience feedback in between songs. You know, just to get that atmosphere when in between them playing. You know, I think cool. if you put too much in there when they're actually playing, it just confuses things. Because like Charlie said, you're picking up a bit of room from vocal mics and stuff like that anyway, which is normally enough. You know, so it's more of a feedback thing from the crowd that I use them for.
Good, yeah. Austin, where are you at with all of this?
I've had to do a lot of wedge mixing in my career. So with wedges, I very much EQ and kind of compress things differently. I use GEQs on wedges just to get my wedge EQ going. The first thing I ever do if I have a wedge on stage is I EQ that box to where I play a song I know through it, and I EQ that box so that I know that it has a flat frequency response or something that's pleasing to the ear to start with. A lot of people will walk up and not do that, which is crazy to me, because each speaker, although it is built to be a flat frequency response, will have certain resonances or tones that are within that box. And also the idea of mixing for in-ears and wedges is like a totally different world, whereas I see mixing for in-ear monitors is more of like creating a record. You have a limited bandwidth that you will be able to hear as a human being, and you can use spatial panning in order to allow people to hear more things going on without kind of a bass guitar and a kick drum being in the same frequency range and fighting each other for that kind of frequency bandwidth. Whereas with a speaker on stage, you're trying to get something loud enough so that they can hear it essentially without feedback. So it's a totally different mixing style. For ears, I never use a GEQ on an output. It's always parametric. But for wedges, it's a GEQ just to get the box sounding like I want the box to sound like.
Got it. Okay, fellas, we've definitely run out of time now. Thanks again. A couple of these moving forward. This will be recorded. We're going to have one in front of house. We're going to have one in theatre design. And I'm going to do one which is industry leaders to try and work out where our industry's moving. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, stay well, enjoy this time at home with your families, because you know we're going to be back on the road again before too long. Thanks again to the panelists for taking part. It was fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All the best, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.